Good evening. I'm going to start with just one person in the live because it's quite late and I want to get this done. So because I'm starting this live on Instagram, I'm just going to introduce. So I usually go on lives and, you know, I've been saying this is like my 90th video and I'm still starting the same way. I talk about my story with being gang stalked in Toronto. Obviously, it hasn't been a very fun experience. It has been the hardest thing that I've ever gone through. It has been ridiculous. Gang stalking basically means that it's where you're followed constantly everywhere. It's a 300, and I call it a 360-degree attack on your life that is meant to make you self-sabotage and lose everything, your health. You know, what I was attacked for was being in a relationship that they didn't want me in, and I don't know at what point they decided that they wanted me gone. You know, and that's what these people work towards, is either being in a contract with the cartel, a binding contract obviously, or just gone, or just out of here altogether. Having lost everything, lost my health, lost kids, lost everything, like this was what they're working on. And as it stands, I think that the person who was contracted to do this is going to continue doing it, even if he has to be the one to personally get in the car and follow me all over himself. Because he does find himself in a predicament with these people because he can't get the job done. It is a real life soap opera. It is a real life drama. I mean, they are literally like, he took money to do something that he cannot do. And you know, it makes sense to me now why he was trying so hard to get this thing done. And why he was so relentless. Yeah, so that is where we are now. During this journey, and I continue to say this story, I am unable to tell it without the spiritual component of what has occurred here. I tried to in the beginning just keep it logical. It just will not. It is, I don't want to say it's bizarre, but it is just everybody, I believe everybody who's a part of this situation is having a spiritual experience. Everybody. The antagonists, the protagonists in this story, everybody. The villains, the victors, everybody's having a spiritual awakening / something's going on. I'll say this. So there is so much to unpack. So I was asking, when I come on live and I talk about these things, I like to ask God, like, what do you want me to talk about? Now, sometimes I know, like, it's a very clear thing and I know what I want to say. Sometimes it just hops out of me. Hey YouTube, check out Can Boutique for super trendy dresses and genuine furs on clearance as low as 70% off. Prices starting as low as $27 Canadian. Visit www.shopcan.com. It's just like, and sometimes I can't do anything until I go on live. Like nothing. I can't get anything done, whether it's work, eat, nothing. I feel this sense of urgency. I gotta come online and I gotta talk for as long as and finish what I need to say. And then as soon as I get off camera, my appetite comes back. Like I feel relaxed again. Like it's just, this is how it works, right? So there's a couple things that I want to talk about. So I said to myself, because I spend a lot of time on YouTube. And I said to myself today, I'm like, I'm chilling on YouTube because I really need to focus on a few other things. So I did not listen to a single YouTube video all day. And I said, I'm going to watch Netflix instead. Now, this is something that I've been telling myself that I was going to do for maybe since Christmas, maybe since December. I said, like, I'm gonna need to focus on other things. And like, when I'm when I spend my time on YouTube, I listen to a lot of stuff about gang stalking and stuff like that. And I was like, look, I need like a break from listening to that. So I get on Netflix and I can't decide what to watch. And then this show appeals to me, and it's called The Fall of the House of Usher. Yes, The Fall of the House of Usher. It's on Netflix. And I started watching it, and it's about, the first couple episodes were kind of about, or I got to episode 2 and it was about like this pharmaceutical company, and then I kind of stopped for a bit. Had no idea where it was going, but just stopped for a little bit, stopped watching it, and went back to YouTube and other things, and my spirit kept being pulled in the direction of like, you gotta watch this show again. I have a funny relationship with YouTube, because before all of this stuff happened to me, I was on YouTube watching a family. What's the name of the show? I need to write it down. Watching a family that basically had to run from the cartel, and they had to take their kids out of school, and their whole life was upside down, and that show freaked me out, and I was so scared. And I was like, I have no idea how they did that, how they had the balls to do that. I forget what it's called, but anyways, everybody knows this show. And I watched the show, I was freaked out by the show, and then I found myself in the situation that I'm in, where I go from like a normal, quiet, very straightforward life to having involvement in the same sort of thing. And, you know, the irony was not lost on me the entire time. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in that show. And then also, in the very beginning of all of this happening, I got into another Netflix show called The Watcher. And in The Watcher, they're in a town where they're being watched, and nobody knows who's the person who's the watcher. Nobody knows who's the person who's orchestrating everything. And everybody in the town has, it's like they have this one house. And anybody who buys that house, there's like people coming in and out of the house from the basement. So the house isn't really theirs, but they pay it. And the same real estate agent sells the house back and forth to people. So a family moves in, I guess they die, I don't know what happens to them, and then maybe they're sacrificed, I can't remember, and then they sell it to another family, and the cycle keeps going, but the whole town wears red robes, and they're into this thing, and they go in and out of these people's houses, and these people, like, their lives aren't controlled. And there was a guy in the show, his name was John. And I remember watching it and and everybody, like, I was figuring out, like, who is the person in this show that's responsible? And I came to the conclusion, I was like, it's John. John's the one who did it. Which is crazy. So, I believe in synchronicities. In life, we call them coincidences. In literature, we call them foreshadowing, and in spirituality, we call it synchronicities. And it is these are basically occurrences that are very significant to the plot line, to the storyline, to your life, that kind of give you an idea of like kind of like where you're going with things, and you know what's meant to happen, etc., etc. I call them, in spirituality, we call it synchronicities, but you can call it foreshadowing as well. Even when I first put this story on my social media and I started outing the situation and outing John Ferreira, one of the statements that I made was, you know, my ancestors have always been slaves, and that is something that I refuse to do. And at the time, I was just talking about like black people in slavery in general. I wasn't even talking about a deeper slavery than what I found out, which was that in this situation, you know, there's a spiritual sort of like definition or a spiritual explanation to everything that happens physically. And I always say, with this kind of agreement that these people wanted to put in my face, they did want to steal my destiny. They did want to steal my life. I would have never had my life in my own control. This would have been a very, very dark deal. This would have been impossible to get out of, because if there's no help while they're trying to recruit you, just imagine after you're fully recruited. No help is coming at all. So it's a very it's been, I don't want to say it's a scary situation, but it's been enlightening. And throughout the entire process, there have been a ton of synchronicities. Like, there are particular songs that I listen to that I think are very much more than songs. I think they're messages. There are things that I see, that I read, and I know that they're just for me. And it's funny because even in like my family dynamic, I've always felt very different from the rest of my family in like every way possible, like to the point where I meet other people and they feel like they're different from their family. I totally understand. I wouldn't say necessarily in a black sheep type of way. If they figure that that's who I am, then it's whatever. But I just feel like I'm just more, I'm just different. I'm more cultured. I have different interests. I'm just a different person. And so it's like, I guess we bear each other. But I just really always feel like the universe always takes care of me in a very personal way. It's almost like having a personal carriage throughout life. Even when all of this was going on, I was like, this is going to be fine. There's always this feeling in my heart where I'm just like, this is going to be fine. Things are going to sort themselves out. And that's why I often look like I'm not going through things, and I actually am, but I look like I'm just managing it a lot better. It's because I know that, the waves might be very rough at the moment, but I'm going to land on a shore one way or the other. Like I'm not ever going to crash. I'm not ever going to not make it where I need to go. But it's so funny because I was drawn to this show, The Fall of the House of Usher, for a very specific reason. I liked the name and I wanted to know what it was about. And essentially what this show is about the angel of death visiting people. And she makes deals with people. And, this couple, this siblings, brother and sister, she made a deal with them and she was like, listen, for this number of years, you're going to have a good life. The law is not going to be able to touch you. You guys are going to have a lot of money, etc., etc. But when it's time for you to go, I'm wiping out your entire bloodline. And they made the deal quickly with her. And so they became billionaires, and they had this pharmaceutical company, and they killed all of these people. They got all of these people addicted to drugs and whatever. But she took the family one by one, and she took them violently. So some people were killed by like the test chimpanzees. Some of the kids were killed by, they committed suicide, but in like a very violent way. Everybody lost their mind before they went. Everybody was hallucinating. And eventually, it's like they started turning on each other, where it was like the brother and sister turned against each other and they took each other out. Now, I'm not finished the entire show, but the irony was not lost on me. I felt like I was watching the fall of another house entirely. The Fall of the House of Usher is a show that is, first of all, I'm very proud of them for making death a woman, because that is spiritually accurate. And then there was all this Egyptian symbolism, and I love that as well, because that is obviously the earliest civilization is from Egypt. I like that they had women in positions of power, because that's very accurate. I hate when they dumb women down, they dumb female characters down to just like legs and breasts and stuff. it's a really good show. Like, people who listen to my YouTube should definitely check it out. But, you know, I think that's what's going on here. I think a lot of old systems are dying out. And, you know, the way you go is dependent. When it's your time, it's your time. But the way you go is dependent on how you behave. So they said the entire bloodline. So when she came to get the granddaughter, who was actually a very, like, pure-hearted soul, she told her, she said it was important to tell her that so many lives in the world were going to be saved as a result of her. And she took her just by touching her forehead. But there was this other brother that she said she could have had him go, like, in a coma, like, not in a coma, but like a heart attack in a car. But she's like, he had to be abusive to the wife and he did all of this stuff. So then it's like he made it worse. He made his ending worse. But the thing is, when it's your time, it is your time. And there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. Because our lives are scripted. And nothing is going to make me believe otherwise, because I have just seen the script of my life. Now, if God says, or the script of your life, let's say, says that you're going to date a particular person who in the real world, you absolutely would never be attracted to this person and you would never date this person in real life. God's going to make that play out in another way. Now, I'm going to save the story of how it was played out in my life in another way, because that is not what today is about. But God is going to make it play out in a totally different way, because the fact of the matter is, God said in the script that you were dating this one particular person. So you're going to have to date this person. You're going to have to be in love with them, in a relationship with them. Even if you don't, like, it's a weird, anyway, I'll explain in another video. But when it's your time, it's your time. So this whole situation with me being gang stalked and my life playing out in the way that it has, and I say this for the benefit of many different people. I think a lot of people can take solace in what I'm about to say, or find comfort in what I'm about to say, hopefully. This situation that has occurred, it didn't matter at all that I think there were times that John Ferreira definitely realized he made a wrong turn, and possibly times where he considered backing out. And in those times, things occurred to trigger him and press his buttons and make him start again. I don't think it was outer worldly. It was just playing on his weaknesses, and the biggest one of all being his ego. So there were situations that played on his ego, some that maybe only a few I would be aware of, but maybe, you know, he would personally know the bulk of them, or his circle would know the bulk of them. Definitely played on his greed. Definitely just, you know what? God knows you better than you know yourself. So for example, there are times where I know, like, I'm given a very specific instruction, and it's like God times the instruction with my procrastination. I kid you not. I never do things too late. Like, I will just drag my feet. But I think it's just, my procrastination is just born out of the fact that I like to do things in my own time. It's just one of my things. I'm going to do it in my own time, and I need time to come acclimatize to whatever the ask is. So even if it's somebody wanting me to go out, I'm really not the girl you're going to ask like a week before to go out. Like, I don't know. I need to consider it. I need just a week to consider if I feel like doing it. So, and then there's other times where I'll wake up one day and I'll just go and get things done and it's not going to be, I'm not going to have a lot of debating to do with myself. I'm not even going to think about it. But because of the way, like I've said this in other videos, there are times where I do talk about spell work a lot and everything that's gone on. But there were times where I could see that this whole situation was really being guided by God's hands. Like, when this all started, I started outing the situation and outing John Ferreira right away. And this was in October of 2022. The same way I'm outing him now. And it makes it hard for him to negotiate with people because people know what he's doing and they know that he's after me. I could have done that at the beginning of the process. And God told me not to do it. They discouraged me. They were like, no, that doesn't look good. That makes him look like he's really doing his job, etc., etc. The same things that I'm doing now to protect my privacy, the same things I'm doing, I could have done all of this stuff from the beginning. And it's like I was guided not to. And there was one point I'm like, wait a minute. Like, what kind of advice is this? Like, am I on the right side of things? Like, what's going on? Like, there's a couple times. Because you see, the thing about me, I'm very observant. I'm very, very observant. So I remember thinking to myself, and I saw what was going on. I remember thinking to myself, I was like, this man is being set up. And I've said this in other videos as well, because I'm standing back and I'm seeing the way God is playing this whole situation out. And I'm like, this is a hit. They're putting a hit out on him. This is a setup. There's no way. And I kid you not, at least more than once, I sat back in my bed and I was like, he doesn't see he's being manipulated. And I almost called him and said, look, you need to stop what you're doing because think about the way this is being orchestrated. Now, what I realize now is had I done that, he still wouldn't have stopped anyway because there's money on my head. And he's probably going to think, oh, she's just a victim and she just wants the pain to end. She just wants the suffering to end. So I was like, I'll leave it alone. It is what it is. And I wasn't supposed to do that. There's supposed to be a hit on him. Because from what I found out, he's like a spiritual hitman. He's like a spiritual assassin. He's like a hit doctor. He's a person that abuses spiritual knowledge, occult knowledge. And he's a person that gets involved in things that he should not spiritually. There are things that even people with spiritual clearance don't want to touch because you just don't want that kind of drama. So when you start playing in death magic, you start playing in taking people's destinies, you start playing in eating away at people's life force, their essence. In this thing that I've gone through, I have seen for my very self that there are people that walk around that are vapid. They're empty on the inside, like their consciousness is not there. What I mean by that is somebody will drive a car up to the front of the store and ask for directions, and I know that it's not them in that body. I know that it's not them driving their own vessel. Something else is looking out from behind their eyes. The way they talk, the way they're a person who's possessed. It's like the way their voices, the way they're moving around, like they're not themselves. One girl came, light-skinned girl, can't remember her name. She's from a particular boutique. She came in my store and I rushed her out of my store. I was like, get out of my store right now. Because I know, the stuff I'm going to say is going to sound crazy, of course, to people that don't know. But anybody who has any spiritual knowledge, good amount of spiritual knowledge, will know what I'm saying. That was John behind her eyes. And he tried to do the same thing to me. They do all of these rituals on people. They do all of these things and they steal your chi, which is your life force. They deplete it. And you are not aware that this is happening, or you might be one of those people who doesn't want to believe that it's happening. And they slowly eat away at it until there's nothing left and you're just left as a shell of yourself. And I've met people who are walking around like this. Multiple times I've seen people that have been victim of this. The first time I seen it was when I signed my lease. When I signed my lease at Village at Vaughan Mills and I was shaking the hands of the manager, there was a little Mexican guy that was standing at the corner and he was just looking at me, and I know it wasn't him looking at me, it was John looking at me through his eyes. And he was pissed because he's like, how the F did she get this location? What did she do? And I think that's the first time he got publicly humiliated at this situation. I think that's the first time. Well, probably not the first time, but probably the biggest one. Because he went out there saying there's no way I'm going to get another store. And, you know, this happens. And I see, this is why I'm saying there's no point in me trying to leave the spiritual aspect out. I need to talk about it in order for people to understand what I'm saying. There are people out here that have taken this deal and they don't understand that the basis of the deal is that this organization is going to use your energy and your life source, your literal life source, your life in your body. They're going to deplete it, and it's almost like they're going to convert it to cash. You're a drug mule. In a very literal sense, that's what you're doing. Is you're risking your freedom, you're giving away your life. If you had something to focus on, you wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, or this or that, you're taking that away from yourself for you to work as a slave for someone else to import and export whatever. And you're building their life while you're on borrowed time. Because any day you can get caught, you can get thrown in jail, you know, something can happen to you. And so this is what they do. This is the contract that you're actually taking. So it is in your best interest, if you are in there, it is in your best interest to do whatever it takes to get out, and get out now, because you are in the sunken place. And, you know, part of the rituals that these people do, it is like the sunken place. The sunken place, or that movie Get Out, where all of these people came to the house and they got to choose a body that they were going to ride. They were going to ride around in this person's body. It's the same kind of thing. It's the same. And while they trap the person's physical body somewhere else, it's the same, or the person's consciousness, somewhere else. It's the same sort of thing where you're no longer in your body, and it's terrifying, and someone else is almost like living your life. It's the same thing. When they make these movies, they are making these movies based on what? It's not really based on imagination. A lot of stories have to be told in a fictitious way. And people don't sit there in the movie or at the end of the movie and kind of glean anything from it. They just take it as entertainment and they move forward. But these are stories that are being told, and these are real things that have happened. Like, if I had to tell my story of what happened to me, I would find it very difficult not having to make it some sort of fictitious story in order to have mass appeal, and in order for people to be able to, like, understand it. I think most gang stalkers know, all gang stalking victims know what I'm talking about, that the supernatural element of what's going on here, that there's something different going on. And it's more than just what can be explained by the reality that you're used to. There's a different reality at play. Gang stalking victims know what I'm talking about. When people don't believe you and they don't see things that are right in front of their eyes, it's like people around you are under some sort of illusion. So in this situation, and this is a thing, this kind of leads me to like what I want to talk about right now. You are, just by living your life day to day, in service of God. And you know, I see God as the universe, of course. And they say that the universe just wants to experience itself. And there are people, I think, that just want to come back, or just come back to this life just to experience one particular thing over and over again, every lifetime. And maybe they're granted that opportunity to do that on a basis of their service. But I think all of us are in service in some way, shape, or form, no matter how meaningless you think what you're doing is. So You may think that if you're a musician and you make a song, that you're not contributing to society as much as someone who feeds the homeless. And that is absolutely not true. I can tell you that that is not true. I'm looking at this Netflix episode. I'm looking at the name of it, The Fall of the House of Usher. The Fall of the House of Usher. About death, visiting people, playing out karma, making deals with people. The Fall of the House of Usher. There are particular songs that I listen to. The lyrics of the song. And another thing, I think music is so sacred. I really do. I think music is the language of the universe. That's what I think, because music puts you in a mood. I think that's why lower dimensional energies always have an obsession with music. I think it's the language of God. I always play particular music when I do my videos because I think it's important to counter the information that I'm giving that can be quite alarming with a more soothing sort of sound, to put someone in a more relaxed state to be able to digest what I'm saying. But through this process that I've gone through, I feel like I've been guided by bits of media, and so many things have come to me just through somebody probably creating a piece of art, a piece of literature, a meme even. And it's like, that's the thing that pointed me in the right direction to do something else, or to do something I was supposed to do, to talk to somebody I was supposed to talk to go somewhere, to whatever, to have an idea, to have a spark. It's those pieces, and to think you were guided to make a song 20 years earlier than when the song would have been critical to changing the course of not just somebody's life, but humanity. One of the things in this show, or this, it's a Netflix show, is that the little girl that she saved her mother who was being abused by the father in the house. And she said to her, your mother's going to start a non-for-profit and it's going to save millions of lives. And you did that just by saving her. And you wouldn't think you'll make a piece, like you make some music and then you save someone's life, and that person whose life you saved ends up saving a bunch of other people. Then who saves the lives? Is it the hen or the egg? Or is it the chicken or the egg? Whatever way they say it. Is it the person who made the music that led the person's life to be saved, who then saved others? Like, every single thing you do has an impact, whether you know it or not. And that's why it's really important to be in touch with your higher self. It's important to be in touch with your consciousness, your inner voice. It's important to let your intuition guide you. I think your intuition is the voice of God. There's been 2 times in particular when I'm doing my videos, I'm like, who am I even impacting? And every single time God showed me who I was impacting and what I was doing this for. And that's why it's easy for me to now come online and be on live. I do the lives on Instagram because it's easier to record here. And it helps the engagement, I think, maybe, who knows. But I'm okay to do a live and nobody be in the live and just talk. And as people come in and out, it is what it is. Because I feel like it may just have an impact on like a one random person, and I don't know what it might impact them to do. That people might just need to know, like, I may have no one in my life forever, and then maybe one day I have a live that actually speaks to someone who needs to do something. There's one song that I like. It's Kulosa by Oxlade. And this guy can, I don't think I've ever seen a live performance of him. Actually, they make fun of him because he can't perform the song live. He sounds so awful live. But the song has blown up. The song is so catchy. It's so amazing. And it's like I always, from the first time I heard that song, I'm like, I was supposed to hear this.
Hey YouTube, check out Can Boutique for super trendy dresses and genuine furs on clearance as low as 70% off. Prices starting as low as $27 Canadian. Visit www.shopcan.com.
Like, I was supposed to hear this song. Like, this song, I don't know. Call me delusional. I think like this song was made for me, and I really think like God was with him in the studio when he recorded this song. I do. I genuinely think that he did not make that song on his own. There's this other show that I like. It's a kids cartoon. It's called Steven's Universe. And I cry profusely every time I watch this. Like, my kids introduced me to this. And like, this is a sidebar. When my kids were younger, I was just fascinated with them more than anything. So I would just lay there and just look at them in awe. So I thought they were the smartest kids ever. I thought they were so mature. I used to love listening to their opinions. And so they tell me about this show. And the show was about crystals, which, if you know me, you know I love crystals. But the show was about crystals. And the show was about, well, you guys can look it up, what it's about. But I always think to myself, it aligns so perfectly with all my beliefs that I'm just like, God spoke to the person that made this show. There's no way, like, this is not a coincidence. And there's so many pieces of art and literature that I'm like, there are too many people out here that are getting the same downloads, that think the same things, that know the same things. And even with me going through this situation, I always felt as though, like, no one gave me my beliefs. Like, it wasn't something where it's like everybody believes this and I'm going along with it. It's like I'm feeling things and I'm believing things, and then it's getting validated in my outside environment, the exact terminology that was in my head. And then now I'm starting to think it's so bizarre. Like, what kind of thing am I into? Like, what is going on here? And I've seen so much in this process. I've seen so many things happen that have completely validated everything that I've felt in my heart and that I've known. So, you know, I think this was a message that I started a while back where, you know, and it's one of the notes that I wrote, like, you're in service to God with everything that you do and you don't know it. And now I'm of the belief that even when you do bad things, you're still in service to the universe, because you are adding contrast to a human experience. And I don't want this to be like permission for anybody to go out there and just be hurting, robbing, and abusing people and thinking, oh, but I just feel like everybody does have their role. This situation that I went through has taught me so much, and I don't think that I would be able to move forward in my life to the next phase of my life not having learned the lessons that I'm learning right now, or that I have learned. I think that if the players in this situation had decided that they wanted to pull out, they would have been drawn back into the situation anyway. I think the situation had to go for as long as it did. And in also saying that, I think there's also a reality that when it's over, it's just over. And like, people just kind of have to accept that when a timeline is over, it's over. So now from where I stand, I feel like, in the same way, it's like when it's not your time, it's not your time, and God's going to make sure that you're okay. I also feel like when it's your time, and there's nothing that you can do. And sometimes it's just like, time's up. Time is up. And things that would have normally worked will not work anymore. Protections that you would normally have, like, you will watch yourself completely dismantle. The life that you have completely come undone. You won't even recognize your life. You won't even recognize yourself by the time you come out. You have to get to know yourself again, because you're a totally different person. I think with everybody that has gone through this whole gang stalking experience with me, whether they've been against me or just been observing, whatever, I think everybody acknowledges that there is something spiritual that's happened here. This is deeper than just like a random occurrence. There's a lot going on. there's a lot going on. I think you have to express your talents, your passions, your gifts. I think you're given these talents for a reason. I think that, and it doesn't matter what it is, because I always kind of looked at myself. I used to work in corporate before, and I thought that was a very meaningful job, and I felt like it meant something. I'm protecting people. If people pass away, their families are taken care of, etc., etc. I had to deliver a couple checks actually, to people whose life insurance policies came due, and a loved one passed away, and I was so happy to be able to do that, because I'm like, this is a time where people need money. But at the same time, I didn't think that selling clothes, which is what I left that career for, to switch. At the time, I felt like I was making a mistake. I was like, it's not about the money. Like, there is a potential to make more money as an entrepreneur. It was just like, I was wondering if I would be fulfilled by doing that. The fulfilling part for me was exploring my creative side and having control over my own schedule and over my life. But I just switched bosses. I went from having a company as my boss, as my overseer, to basically my clients. And I was working for clients on their time when they needed things and stuff like that. So, but I didn't think selling clothes was supposed to be instrumental. Like, what was that gonna do? But God will shock you. God will surprise you in how God utilizes the gifts that you have that you think are meaningless in order to bless other people and bless other people's lives. I essentially was building this platform, and I remember the customers that I was attracting were not customers at all that I would normally want to have. And now it seems that I have a message for these very same people, because I believe a lot of my customers are stuck in a death loop that they don't know about or that they don't understand. But that is a story again for another live. I will leave that one out. On YouTube, my videos speak to gang stalking survivors. So people who have survived gang stalking or who are currently going through gang stalking, and are looking for a means to kind of cope with the very grueling experience that they're going through. You have to trust the process, and you have to lean into it. And I've spoken about that in other videos, because if those people wanted you out of here, you would have been out of here already. Believe me. It's not like they can't bribe their way through, and it's not like you wouldn't be the first person they've made disappear. Okay? You have to trust the process, and you have to look for signs, and you have to try to learn lessons from it, and you have to see what can come from it. I think there are two types of people. Well, I'll break it down to just be simple. There are two types of people that go through gang stalking. I think there are people who have reported making it out of the cycle. And then there are people, well, it seems there are only few. And then there are people who seem trapped in it for a very long time. And I feel like the message that I have for people is, you can close the cycle. The cycle does, I can't tell everybody's future, but I don't think this cycle is a cycle that's supposed to be indefinite. I think it's something you're supposed to go through, you're supposed to learn from, and then you're supposed to put your knowledge and the things that you've learned back in service to society. Let people know that this is going on first and foremost. Assist other people. Like for me, I feel like in sharing my videos, I help other people that are going through it, not just in listen, and I've been through it, so I can tell you the emotions, the emotional labor that it takes to climb out of this thing. You have to be very strong. People have to be able to go from being in a state of not having any hope to finding enough peace to manifest their way out of this. To have a mentality where you can see a future outside of this, that you can climb out of it, that you can walk away unscathed, that you can win despite feeling like, and in a way it's true, that the entire world is against you. When you're being gang stalked, nothing is the same. You don't get an ambulance the same. You can't go into the world in the same way. You can't just call the police. People don't help you. It's like you're in a cycle of endings in your life. It's like your worst nightmare. It's like nothing goes good. Somebody else is utilizing your good luck. You're a battery for someone else energetically. You're in a constant state of loss and losing people. You lose it's death to every single house that you have. Your soul contracts, which are your friendships, if it's a relationship that you're supposed to have, your family, your friends, your lovers. It's canceling all contracts. If you were supposed to have wealth, a certain type of lifestyle, whatever it is, you come to a point where all those contracts are canceled and somebody else gains it. Somebody else gains the partner. Somebody else gains the money. Somebody else gains the lifestyle, the job, the way people see them, whatever it is. Somebody else is building a life off of your luck and your destiny. So this is what it's like. I think both literally and figuratively. And in my case, it's like they wanted to put me in the cartel as a drug mule. So essentially somebody could have just ran off and lived my life, because I would have been stuck. I would have been binded to that situation. Not to say that if God wants you out of this situation, God will take you out of this situation in people's face. God can do that for you. It'll take some time. God will walk you through it. And this is the thing. I think it doesn't even have to take time. I think when God's ready, if the timeline says that it needs to be February 21st, with little to no labor on your part, you'll wake up the next day and it's like by the stroke of luck, you're dropped off on the side of the street, and that's it. That's the end of that journey for you. It's done. It's seamless. No pain. If there is pain to it and you do have to walk through that situation, like I did, slowly. But I also think I was being trained. I was being trained for something else. I was being shown my own resilience. I was being taught lessons. I was being disillusioned because I had a lot of illusions about, human nature and how people are. I have been very, very, very disillusioned by the things that I've seen and the things that I now know people are capable of. Like I said, I think that it's very important to just let life play itself out. And we have this attachment. It is a blessing to live old. But we have this attachment to feeling like, it's a huge blessing to live old, but sometimes maybe your purpose might be for you not to be here for a very long time. You might just play out your role at a certain time, and you have to be good with that. You have to be good with going when you're ready to go. That's something that I've always known. Like for myself, I've just always known that I either live free or I die young. I've always known that I'm just not going to compromise on my quality of life. If it's compromised, then I'm ready for death to come. So I've never been a person where I could be threatened, someone can threaten to take me out of here to listen. I just knew that would never happen. And if that meant I had to have a very compromised life experience to not be a slave or at somebody else's mercy, then that's what it was going to be. And that was in regards to everybody, relationships, everybody. So it's like, me being put in a situation like this, it's like God already knew I was not gonna go for it. It's like the universe already knew, she'd prefer to die. She's not gonna do it if she doesn't want to do it. And that was it. Even if I had to take myself up out of here myself, I was just not gonna do it. It just is what it is. I don't succumb to things I don't want to. Let God clean house in your life and let these contracts be canceled. Family, friends, whoever, whatever you call them, they're not that great if they would sell you out in the first place. Emotionally detach as soon as you can. It's okay. Let God clean house, because if you have the wrong people in your life, your blessings can't come in. people block your blessings. And that's not just something people say. I couldn't get my blessings with these people in my life. They would have just sucked onto it. They would have just pulled it away. So I have to wait on God's time for things to happen. And God guides things not to happen, or allows things to happen. And I might sit there and I might think, how comes this is not working? How comes that's not working? And it's just God's time is not, like, God doesn't want it to work at that time. That's why it's not working. So it is what it is, right? You need to find peace. Give yourself some peace and some time for you to grow. If you're constantly being bombarded, if you're constantly being shelled down with these situations that are just taking away your peace, you need to find ways to close the doors. That's how you close the cycle, slowly, one door at a time. I closed one door at a time. Any discomfort that you have, like I had a discomfort of, first of all, right away, I was putting bolts on my doors because I was like, I will not wake up in the middle of the night and see someone standing over me in my own home or making me feel uncomfortable, like they're coming in and out. There's absolutely no way. So I put bolts on the inside of my doors right away. I knew if I was inside, no one else was getting in, and I was good with that. And that's part of some of the things that they want to do to manipulate you, because the guy putting the bolts tried to talk me out of it. And that's how I knew I was doing the right thing. But you need your peace. You need to think about what things are bothering you, whether it's that you feel like you're being followed, you're being hacked, you're being watched. Close one door at a time. Now, if you try in every way possible and the door's not closing, it just means that it's not time for it to close. And believe me, I've been frustrated about a couple doors not closing, but God closes the doors when the doors are supposed to be closed. And God keeps the door open for a reason and keeps those blockages in place for your protection. You would never think that blockages would be for protection. Okay? And the rest of it, I'm going to go into, because I'm going to make a whole video just on re-entering the world. Because that is what I'm doing right now. So I feel like I've swam far enough, and I'm just like telling people, like, this is what it's like. It is possible. I used to have to find a way to feel what this feels like, this peace that I'm experiencing now. I used to have to find a way because I was under constant, consistent pressure the entire time. So I know that you can't yet visualize or even empathize with what I'm talking about, but you will. It's coming. Your time is coming. Everybody's time is coming. There's one quote from that show that stuck with me, and I want to repeat it in this video. The coldest character in that video was the sister, or in that show, The Fall of the House of Usher, was the sister. And this is how Death described her. Death said, You're a collection of elaborate masks orbiting a stunted heart. And that's how I see John Ferreira. I have never seen it described more perfectly. A collection of elaborate masks orbiting a stunted heart. Just think about that. Now, the time is running, so let me pull the crystal cards. I have to get this behind me. Let me pull these crystal cards that came out today. I had to shuffle the cards first because sometimes when I shuffle the cards here, my energy gets mixed into it, and I could tell that these cards are for me, and I don't know if they're for the collective as well. But, I got Tiger's Eye. This is what it looks like. It's one of my favorite stones, but I also find Tiger's Eye, I have favorites between the protection stones, but I feel like Tiger's Eye is a good protective stone for men. I usually see a lot of Asian men. It's a very highly used stone in Asian culture. It's a crystal for depression and low self-esteem. This is what they describe it as. And you're sent a lot of that energy when you're being gang stalked anyways. A lot of this stuff is not you. Your life is still the same, but it's the pressure that's being pounded into your world, right? This is a card. It's a mental stone. And it's about inner resources. The vibration is medium. Tiger's eye alleviates depression and lifts dark moods. It gently heals issues of self-worth, self-criticism, and blocked creativity, and supports an obsessive or fearful personality to make changes. Tiger's eye instills trust in the future, showing how to set realistic goals. It assists in decision-making and promotes clarity of intention. This protective stone deflects negative energy and protects against ill will and bullying. It also teaches integrity and the correct use of power. For the body, it affects the eyes, the digestive system, the throat, and the bones. And spiritually, it enhances psychic abilities and stimulates the rise of Kundalini energy. So I would assume that this would affect the solar plexus. Or no, maybe the sacral chakra. Yeah, that's probably the chakra it affects. Anyway, this is what it looks like. So go buy a tiger's eye bracelet if you're watching this. For men, it comes in the bigger beads that are like 8 millimeters. Go get one of those. The other card that came out was Morganite, and I might as well read it. Morganite is a pink crystal, and it's the crystal of emotional fulfillment. And this is what it looks like. It's a pink stone, Morganite. It is an extremely high vibrational stone, and it's a love attractor. Morganite attracts unconditional love, encouraging loving thoughts and actions towards yourself and others. Morganite facilitates recognizing unfulfilled emotional needs and unexpressed feelings. It dissolves conscious and unconscious resistance to healing and change, clearing victim mentality and opening the heart to receive unconditional love and healing. The stone holds the emotional body stable while psychosomatic changes take place and creates a holding space for cellular and DNA changes to occur. This loving stone is a superb antidote to stress and tension. On the body, it affects the circulatory and nervous systems, the heart, sexual organs, and cellular structure. And on a spiritual level, it aids soul retrieval, which means taking your life force energy back, realigns the energetic and physical bodies with the soul, activates and cleanses the heart chakra. I know a lot of men will not naturally go for a pink crystal, but we need to talk a little bit more about men being more, taking their emotions a little more seriously, us taking men's emotions more seriously, and men kind of recognizing that they need love too, that they suffer from, you know, mental deficiencies, or not feeling loved or not feeling valued, etc., etc. So my oracle cards for today, and I always do these oracle cards, spirit messages, oracle cards, I have to do them every day, so I'm going to do them now to close out this video. First one, keep moving forward even if you are unsure of your next step or where it may take you. Trust that you are walking the path you're meant to walk. Remember, we're walking it with you. Trust yourself more. So this must obviously be for someone who is having trouble trusting the process that they're on and not trusting in their future. I was there, and God had to pressure me and guide me every day. Like, you're not trusting in your new beginning. We said that obstacles are out your way. This is what you have to do. Continue moving forward. Push past whatever doors, whatever hurdles you have. So listen, you can be feeling depressed and hopeless one day, and it just takes you just picking up your work one day, and an idea comes, a spark comes, and now everything is just snowballing in front of you, and you're getting idea after idea after idea after idea. Keep going. It's not easy, believe me, especially when you feel hopeless and you feel like people are against you. One step at a time, one foot in front of the other. The second card says, you're feeling somewhat confused by the events that are unfolding around you and the various seemingly contradictory information that is coming your way. Trust your instincts and do what they are telling you to do, and you will learn a lot about yourself and the direction you want to take in life. if you're going through gang stalking, if you're going through this level of intimidation and you're by yourself and you feel isolated, you are not alone. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people around the world going through it. You're just meant to keep going through. You're not meant to stop. You're not meant to lose hope. And definitely do not go back to a situation that you have seen that you need to leave. My YouTube, which I didn't even pin, is God's Way 1019. So do check it out. And for anybody on YouTube, comment in the comment sections. Let me know if you've ever tried any of my advice. I've had people like commenting on that lately. If things are working or not working for you. And I have 3 seconds left. So thank you and have a good night.